Hello and welcome back to the Meraki Unboxed podcast. My name is Sammy Brenner and we are recording this on a Friday, and I could not be more happy that it is about to be the weekend. And we've got an incredible podcast for you today, although I know you're listening to this on a Wednesday, which is when all of our content is released. And I'm very excited to announce our guest in just a second. But before I do that, make sure you download, subscribe, tell all your friends about the Meraki Unboxed podcast. We want to make sure people are listening and hearing the latest and greatest every 2 weeks. And a shameless plug, if you want to collaborate with us, if you have great ideas about guests on the podcast, reach out, let us know. We would love to collaborate with you if it makes sense. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the content today and introduce our guest and read a little bio, and then we're going to get into a fantastic conversation. So Ricardo Duque is an electric engineer and a technical sales leader with 18 years plus of experience in pre-sales, architect design, planning, implementation, configuration, technical support, and consulting about IT and networking devices. So he is really a jack of all trade and a total brainiac. Ricardo currently is a TSA, and that stands for Technical Solutions Architect at Cisco Meraki, and joined Cisco, the organization, back in 2014. So he's had years of experience at Cisco. He currently resides in Southern California with his wife, and he's a self-proclaimed dog lover, but doesn't have any dogs yet. He enjoys cooking and barbecuing and loves to stay active and fit, and is a huge sports guy. I guess soccer is his sport, so we might get into that in a little bit. But welcome to the podcast. Ricardo, how are you?
I'm doing great, Tammy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. Again, it's Friday. What can go wrong?
Oh yeah, right. It's almost time for a beer, right?
It's almost time for a beer. There you go. Yeah, you and I are on the same page. It is 5 o'clock somewhere.
It's
Well, great. Welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited that you're here. And you kind of got here because on the CEC, which is the homepage for those of you listening outside of Cisco, Ricardo had an awesome feature story kind of about who he is and what he does at Cisco and some of his passion projects. And we thought, hey, he would be an amazing guest on the podcast. So we'll have to
yeah.
get into
Thank
some
you.
of that. Great. Well,
Thank you. That sounds awesome. Better
awesome.
than it was, but it's thank you.
Yeah, of course. So let's start from the beginning. I always ask this question first. Tell us your story and how did you get into technology?
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna start my story by just saying that I was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia, and in the 80s. So yeah, you can guess I have some gray hair, of course. And I was born in a very low income family, and I was the eldest of the three kids. My parents are carpenters, and they even struggled to just get, finish their high school education, quite honest. However, I think they have something that really shaped our family of five, and that was their core values. So their core values about love, courage, discipline, ethic, and a super strong sense to helping others, even though we have really not that much to help at that point. But since I was a kid, I found my passion for education and just for learning. And with all my determination and of course with my family support, I start achieve academic and sport excellence. And I just finished my high school, and then I become a trailblazer, and I just joined into the college, right? So I just joined the Universidad Nacional de Colombia, which is, for those of you that probably are familiar, one of the big universities in Colombia, to just start my engineering degree. And I was the first one in my family to just do that. So
Wow.
I really take the flag and see, okay, we'll see how that goes. It wasn't an easy experience, quite honest. Again, a lot of struggle from the financial perspective with my family. However, I was able to just keep doing it, having a really huge success on my college. And during my last year, I was 20 years old at that time. And I won the chance to become into a CCNA instructor. at that time. So the university was trying to open a NetAcad in the college. So I just participated in the process, won the chance to have all that certification process, and I become a CCNA and CCNA instructor. Then I graduate from my college like the top engineering student, and I was even the speaker of my graduation ceremony. And quite honest, that's probably still one of the happiest moments in my life. And I'm pretty sure from my parents as well. Just see the first one on the family just on the stage, and I graduate with honors, quite honest, in that one. But the interesting part about the journey, it wasn't even that. After that, I really began another, journey of transformation, because what I want to do is, okay, now I'm an engineer, and now I need to work to just with my family to give the same chance to my sister and my brother, right? And we start working together, and I'm so proud to say that they also become successful lawyer and doctor. So my sister is a lawyer, my brother is a doctor with multiple specializations, and from zero to three, I'm gonna say. While I was working in all that, right, with that purpose in mind, just help to transform our family's life, I set my goal to just become a Cisconian, right? So I was like, hey, I really like this. I love the approach. I love technology. Of course, I'm an engineer at heart. And so I start working with Cisco partners, service providers, sharing my knowledge a little bit across borders in South America, Central America, even in Europe, teaching some Cisco classes and using NetAcad, of course, and the learning partners that Cisco has, and also working as a college associate professor, because actually that's one of my passions, right? Teaching and learning from people. That's really one of my core, values. And at the end of the day, all those experiences ultimately just, brought me to the option to start my Cisco journey. And I I just was hired like a red badge or contractor in the Cisco Advanced Services for LATAM. And that was 2014, about 10 years ago now. And since then, I just start, integrating all of those core values that I have with the Cisco culture, and just moving, on the corporate ladder, if you want to call it in that way, and just, jumping from one role to another in Cisco. And that's how I ended here.
Wow, lot to unpack there. Lot to unpack there. So I want to go take a couple steps back, and we can talk about your career at Cisco and kind of climbing the corporate ladder and jumping around and doing different roles. I want to go back to this innate need that you have, like graduating with honors as an engineering student, which is incredible, but then to give back and help ensure the success of your brother and your sister who became doctor and a lawyer, which is incredible. What was your role in helping them achieve that success? Like, what did that look like? I'm just curious, like, was it just like inspiration, or how did you help them get on that path?
That's a great question. I think, first of all, I offer, of course, some economic support, right? So, of course, I was offering some economic support because I was getting my first job at that time, right? But I think, quite honest, that wasn't the most important thing, right? Of course, I mean, you need to pay the college, right? But to me, it was more the example, right? That was just leading by example, and just they were trying, to just, of course, do and believe that you can change it, right? And of course, I was trying to show them how to do it, talk to them, and I think it was more like a coaching, exercise, and a mentoring at the same time, in which I was, use all those challenges that I had at some point, and just teach them how to transform those challenges into real opportunities, and how to really, own their story and be able to do the same, right? And I think to me that was probably the biggest part. And I'm not gonna say that I did that alone. Of course, no. My parents play a super fundamental role in that one, and of course we work together as a team. So that's you know what they say, right? The teamwork makes the dream work, and
Right.
that's 100% true in my family. So we
Right.
play each one a role, and of course I was leading the whole the whole journey on that.
Wow. That's incredible that you care that much, you care that deeply, right, about their success, that you kind of take it on yourself to ensure that they're on a path that breeds them, similar success to what you had. So that's awesome. You mentioned becoming a CCNA instructor, and that's kind of was your first taste into Cisco and that architecture. For those listening, and it's mainly a Cisco and Meraki audience, but there are other folks out there who aren't, part of the organization. What is CCNA? So tell us what it is, and then how did you leverage being an instructor? Like, I guess my question is, was it that from that moment on you were like, I want to be at Cisco? Like, were you just kind of entranced by the technology, or what was it about this program that got you so excited to become a Cisconian?
Yeah, that's also a good question. I think for those of you that are probably not familiar with the terminology, CCNA stands for the Cisco Certified Network Associate, which is pretty much the first entry of certification program into the Cisco world. So you cover all the fundamentals about networking, pretty much, right? So when I saw that, right, I literally probably gonna say it's gonna sound a little bit courtesy, but it's true. I really fall in love with the networking world and how to understand how the things were connected and how the internet works and how how really all those applications and services that we use, what is really behind the scenes of all of
Right.
that. So that's why actually I literally fell in love with all the Cisco technology. And since then I was like, oh, wow, it should be great to work in that company, right? To just, why not? Why not? And that's when actually I think that internal motivation and, desire to just go after more, start, my journey on the Cisco and see how can I make that happen, right?
Right.
And that's I got a funny story, and maybe some of you are familiar with this movie, A Knight's Tale. I don't know if you're familiar with that movie in which William Thatcher it's trying to become into a knight, a real knight, but he's super humble, of course. So when he said the people, even his father, that he wants to be a real knight, people laugh, right? And people is like, I mean, you're a peasant, right? You're a peasant, so no one can change the stars. And I remember that movie because actually that marked a really interesting moment in my life in which they were, William Thatcher's father told him, hey, if you believe enough, a man can do anything. And go and change your stars, right? And live the life that you want to live and not the one that you had to. And I think that I took that like deeply, deeply
Yeah.
in my heart and just start to see, hey, you know what? I like this one, and Cisco could be a really good goal to go after, right? And at the same time, I can use that to transform my family's life, right? So it was that purpose that literally just, start to drive the entire conversation. But
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. And what a great example. That movie and that quote, and his dad saying, if you believe enough, you can make anything happen. I love that. Because you can't teach grit and tenacity and drive and hunger, right? All these things that you're a leader, right? We want in our employees. That's certainly what I look for when I'm hiring, is people who have those qualities. Um, how do you help someone find the light in that regard? How do you work with someone to bring out those qualities, those characteristics? Do you think it's just innate? It's in people? Do you think it can be trained? What are your thoughts?
I think that there needs to be some internal motivation, right? Definitely, it's a start like an internal motivation, right? But I think that at some point you can also use those challenges that you have in life, right? And that's my approach, right? You can take those challenges and decide what you want to do. You want to just take the challenge and remain seated and keep crying, or you want to take that challenge and transform that into an opportunity for you. And I think that's the way to teach that kind of things. That's actually my approach. Let me give you an example. When I was young, we didn't have that money to pay for the rent or for just buy good quality food, right? So what you can do, right? What I did, and that's the approach that I'm trying to transfer. It's, hey, I start selling lottery, literally selling lottery in the streets. That was my first seller job when I was 12, by the way. I was 12, and I just was literally selling lottery in the streets. And all that money was for my family, right? And in that way, we were helping to pay the rent, helping to just buy some food and those kind of things. And again, it was part of the internal motivation, right? Mm-hmm. But also it was part of, okay, how to use that challenge and transform that challenge into opportunities, right? And I think that's how you can teach how to use it, right? Because at the end of the day, the challenge is the challenge. You cannot control that, right? But you can control how you react to that challenge. And that's the part that you can literally get better and that you can get trained.
Yeah. You can't control other people's actions. You can only control your own and your reactions. That's such a valuable lesson. And you sound like a person who certainly doesn't play the victim. If a challenge is handed to you in life, if you have a hard circumstance or situation, you're going to take it on yourself to try to figure it out, right? Which is important. And I think that speaks a lot to your parents and the way they raised you clearly in your family growing up. Speaking of giving back and family and that sense of community, I know that giving back is extremely important to you, and you're involved in some of the EROs at Cisco. I'm curious, why is giving back so important to you? And then talk to us about some of what you do to give back to your community, to an employee resource group. Talk to us about what that looks like.
Yeah, again, part of the core values that my family, especially my parents, put on my heart was like, hey, you need to definitely help others, right? We are here in this world with a purpose, right? You probably can spend the entire life figuring out what is your purpose, and you're probably not gonna get it, right? But in the meantime, what you do, and in the meantime, what you do with not only with the money, what you do with the skills, what you do with the strengths, what you do with all you get, right? From your job, from your family. And you decide how to use that, right? You can take all of that and just keep it for yourself, right? Or you can plant the seed in others and multiply that. And that's why, for me, giving back is so freaking important. And to me, I do the giving back, quite honest, not because I want any kind of recognition or something like that. I do it because I want to plant that seed in others. In that way, you can multiply that effect, right? And that's actually, I'm part of multiple initiatives. I actually, since I was, again, kid, I was trying to giving back to my community. But right now, I'm part of Conexión, which is the Latin ERO here in Cisco. And I start in Conexión like a regular member when I actually moved to the States. And then I moved into a chapter lead role. And now I'm the global events lead in that Conexión ERO. And of course, because we want to give back to our Latino community, right? There is too much that we can do for our community. And if there is ways in which you can get sponsors and multiply that effect, that's great, right? But I also I love soccer, you mentioned that. So I'm part of the AYSO, which is the American Youth Soccer Organization. And that's a 100% volunteer organization as well. So we pretty much teach soccer to kids. And I am a head coach, a board member, a referee in that organization. So I put a lot of hours in that kind of things. And I just love it. It's just, again, just planting the seed and see other people smile and help other one to also be successful, right? And actually that to me is part of my style, right? I like to say that I'm a 2PL leader, 2P leader, which means that I lead with purpose and passion. And my purpose in
Ah,
this case, is, of course, help others to be successful, right? And if you can teach a kid not only how to kick a ball, I mean, you can learn how to kick a ball, right? But if you can teach to those kids lessons about how to take a loss, how to take the defeat, how to train harder to become better, right? If you can teach the kids those kind of things, to me, that's all about giving back. The last one, I'm a firm believer that proper education plus family core values, can change life, can
right.
change lives. And that's actually why I don't talk about this too much, quite honest, but that's why we sponsor also in Colombia. Today, we sponsor with my wife 2 young adults in Colombia, and we pay for their college tuition. So we literally
Wow.
take care of the entire college. And one of them, it's almost ready to get his business administration degree. And the other one, it's in the first year of her journey to get a teacher and educator credentials in Colombia.
Wow.
So that's why, again, I was able, right, to just align a lot of different variables and, work with a lot of different teams to change my life, to transform my family. Now, hey, the less I can do, right? It's use those skills that I learned during the process and help others to
Hmm.
do even better, right? Or just transform their own lives. And that's why, to me at least, giving back is really deep to my heart.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Wow, that's incredible. I'm sure a lot of people out there listening, including myself, I'm like, I need to log a couple more VTO hours, but you can hear it in the sound of your voice, like the passion and the enthusiasm that you have and the deep meaning of this volunteer work to you. And you know that statement about planting the seed in others and then letting that multiply, and your leadership style being the 2Ps, purpose and passion. I love that. And how fortunate you are to have found that. I feel like a lot of people go their whole life trying to figure out purpose. I think it's, maybe I'll ask you about that. I think it's so daunting because a lot of times people say, well, have purpose in the work you do and have passion in your job every single day. And that's not always easy to do. Right. And for those folks who are still soul searching or maybe younger in their career and they haven't found that yet, what's your advice to keep people driven and on a path, and tips and tricks to figure out what do passion and purpose look like? Because it can be really overwhelming, right? To try to figure that out.
Yeah, definitely. That's an entire journey. I'm gonna say it's an entire discovery process, right? It's not easy at all to find what I want to do, what I really want to be, right? And again, it's not like there is a magic recipe, to just do 1, 2, 3, and you'll be fine. Definitely, it's not, right? This has a lot to do with how well you know yourself. And I think that's, to me, the really first step that you need to
Yeah.
do. It's
Yeah.
okay, if I really want to find what is my purpose, what is my passion, right? I need to find what really brings me joy, what really brings me, a smile on my face when I just think about it, right? And that's part of the, internal discovery or self-discovery, exercise, right? You need to take what you really like, right? And again, people cannot tell you that. That's the important thing. I mean, people can't tell like, oh, you looks like, you looks to like this, or maybe, hey, I can tell that you are good doing this or that. However, there is a huge difference between things that you are good at versus things that you really like to do.
Right.
And
Right.
find that difference. It's important to just find that purpose, right? Because let me give you an example, right? I love music. I love music, but I'm not a good musician, not at all. Even if I tried, I took guitar lessons and singing lessons, and I was playing in a band and some stuff. However, at some point I was okay. I like this, but I'm not really good doing it. And even if I try, I'm not good. So you need to try to align those two things at some point and see, hey, I'm good. I'm really good doing this, but also I feel good and powerful and strong when I do those kind of things. When you have that alignment, guess what? You discover one of the things that you can really thrive.
Right. You find flow, right? You find
find the
passion.
flow.
Right. Describe that for folks listening. Like so for me, getting to leadership was the first time in my career ever where I felt in flow. Time would just fly. I loved what I was doing. I loved coaching and mentoring and helping people, prep for an interview and get promoted. And I found it, right? And it was the first time ever I felt it. So what is flow like for you? When are you in flow? What are you doing?
I'm gonna say that there's multiple answers to that one because I have like different approaches to that one. But I'm gonna say the first one, it's when I'm involved with people, helping that people to be successful. That to me, it's like a match. It's like a perfect match. I feel like connected because I love people, so I love connections, and at the same time, I love seeing other ones to succeed. So you got that connection. So that's one of the ones that I really like it. The other one I'm going to say is related to my family. When of course, all that leadership and all that theory, I also apply with my girls, right? So if I can see my daughters thrive in one of those things after we were able to just connect and guide them through, whatever challenge it is, that's powerful, right? The other thing, the third one, it's I love challenges. I love it. I embrace them. I just love it. And I keep challenging myself, right? And I keep challenging myself. So for instance, when I was in Colombia, right, working for Cisco in Colombia, we were looking for some relocation. And at that time, I already had my wife, and my girls, and we were saying, okay, we want a new challenge. We want to, get out of our comfort zone and see what options do we have. And thanks to the life, we got a chance to, apply for a role here in the States and got that relocation. Cisco and Meraki sponsor the entire process, which I'm super thankful. And we moved here without no family at all. So we are literally the first ones in our families, both my wife's family and my family, to just take that risk. And when you take that risk and just connect that risk with a challenge, and you feel good doing it, there is an entire learning process through that one, right? So that's to me the other flow. When you are able to just connect, the challenge again with an opportunity and just embrace those opportunities. And I'm not talking about just job again, okay? Sometimes you have that in your day by day, right?
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Not everyone is like that, right? A lot of people getting uncomfortable, challenges, unforeseen circumstances make people very nervous and apprehensive and cause anxiety. And it's incredible that you're like, oh, bring it on. That's like your sweet spot. You're like, if there's opportunity in this challenge, I want it. how do we reframe our brain to think more like that? So for those of us who, if a challenge gets thrown our way, or you start to feel anxiety about something, what's a tip or trick you have to reframe your brain?
Oh, I mean, I'm not saying that actually I'm not feeling anxious or nervous when I'm doing those kind of things.
Right.
Trust me, I panic. I'm not saying that it's not that it's easy and I just, oh yeah, let's do this and it's just easy peasy, lemon
Right.
squeezy. It's not. It's not at all. You got the anxiety. You're always gonna get that. You're always gonna get that, you're always gonna get that anxiety, that nervosism, like, okay, what is gonna be next? What about this? What about that? What about that? And I think to me, how you rewire your brain has a lot to do with what is the end goal of that situation. So are you clear about what is the end goal of that situation that you're facing today? If you can focus your mind in the end goal of that situation, you're probably gonna be better on the decision process or just taking or embracing that change, right? The second one, it's a little bit of how do you take life, right? You cannot control, what others make. You cannot control, external variables or external factors, right?
Mhm.
You can control yourself, right? You can even control. I mean, I have problems just controlling what my girls do, right? So you cannot control that, right? So there's no way that you can control it. But you can control how you react. You can control how you approach that situation, right? And when you realize that, you guess what? You are eliminated a lot of that external anxiety because now you can focus in something that you know well, you.
Right. Yeah. A lot of like soul archaeology work, right? To understand who you are and what makes you tick and what do you love doing. And so let me ask, how did you learn kind of the psychology of yourself? It sounds like it's a skill that's developed over time, but you really had to invest in you and, learning along the way what you like, what you don't like, what challenges motivate you versus what doesn't. Talk to us. How did you discover that?
Again, that's a process that is going to take some time, right? But
Yeah.
more than time, it's going to take effort to just invest in yourself, right? And let me ask you this question, and especially for all the people that are listening, how many hours a week you dedicate to yourself? And when I'm saying to yourself, I'm not talking about your family, your wife, your kids, your job. No, yourself. Just investing in yourself, in something that you is for you, just for you,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
nobody else.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can be surprised that a lot of people have 0 hours in a week investing
Right.
in themselves, right?
Right.
And actually, that's why I did that exercise and just start doing that exercise. And I really like, and for those of you that are probably like to read or, audiobooks or whatever, there is actually a really good book, which is called Love Plus Work by Marcus Buckingham. And hey, if you want to start that kind of journeys, you should read it. Definitely, it's a book to teach about, okay, how can I invest more time in myself, just in discovering what are really my strengths, what is really my skills, who am I really I? I mean, it's not an easy question, of course, right?
No.
But you need to invest time just doing that, right? And I think that again, it took me years to just discover and of course be passionate about, okay, hey, you know what? The first time that I look myself with a honest view in front of the mirror,
Hmm.
you're probably not gonna like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
you're gonna start
uncomfortable.
this, oh yeah, of course. And you're gonna
Yep.
start seeing yourself like, oh wow, oh really? I did that, I'm like that. Uh, but again, even with all those defects or imperfections, you need to start loving yourself and see,
Mhm.
okay, hey, okay, maybe I'm not a good maybe I'm not a good, I don't know, cooker, right? I'm not a good at cooking. Okay, but guess what? I like to make cocktails and I'm really good at it. And see, again, that was a challenge, something that you probably don't like it, but then you can start moving around and see, okay, but this one is good. So, or this other one is good. And if you feel strong doing those kind of things, do it more.
Right. And I think people underestimate the correlation of doing this soul work to find out who they are and investing in themselves and figuring out what they like and how much it correlates with people who are really successful at work. Because I think the more clear you can get with who you are and what you do well and your strengths and where you can invest, that's when your career takes off, right? When you have this intuitive sense of purpose and who you are and knowing what you're really good at. And so doing the work outside of work to figure that out makes you a better employee, right? When you argue that that's when things really take off.
Yep, and that's why actually I love one of the Meraki values that we have, which is simplify everything.
Mm-hmm.
And actually it's because sometimes you can just start overcomplicated how to be success or how to really discover who I am. And again, it's even though it's a long process or could be a long process, it's not that hard. It's simple. It's simple. You just need to start to look into you. And
Right.
it's simple. And I like that approach of, of our Meraki value, like, hey, you need to learn how to simplify everything. Sometimes
Absolutely.
we just are master of complexity.
Yes. Oh, I agree. And also another value, being brave. It is courageous work to look in the mirror and decide that things need to change or be different. So I think it all weaves in together. So let's talk about you finding your strengths and then showing up at work and using them. So you're a TSA right now. That's your role at Cisco
Yep.
Meraki. So tell us a little bit about the role and what it entails, but more importantly, the strengths that you've discovered you have along the way. How do you implement that in your daily job to bring you purpose and passion? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, let me start by telling that, or by saying that, being a TSA, which is, a technical solutions architect, it's about sales, right? It's about advising. It's about to, of course, checking what are the customer requirements and how to align those requirements with our products, with our services, and at the end of the day, help the customer to be successful, right? That's what we do, right? So we need to become like a trust advisors for our customers, right? And of course, I cover the entire Meraki portfolio. So I'm, I covered, from cameras to endpoint management solutions, switches, wireless, a little bit of SD-WAN and security and a lot of different products, I should say. And when you need to go and talk to your customers, talk to your partners, talk to your colleagues about, solutions, I think that I discovered, right, that one of my strengths and is one of those skills that I'm really good and I really like is actually create those personal connections. I'm really good creating. So I'm a connector, like natural connector, and also an advisor. So, hey, how can I use that on my job? If I'm good connecting with people, let's go and take that and start to take a different approach with my customer conversations, for instance, right? So instead of just go and pitch, oh yeah, here is our, MS390 or our MX105, and this is the features and all of that one. Hey, how was your day? Let's start the conversation talking about, hey, oh wow, I looked that you like football. How was the game the other day? And change that conversation a little bit from just being 100% technical to just create that connection first. I think when you create that connection first, then you can start talking about other things and are going to be different and the conversation level is going to be entirely different, because now you have a connection, right? Now you have that connection. And I think I use that a lot in my job. And I use that, like a TSA, of course, I use that a lot with my customers. And I try to use that connection ability to do it. And that's pretty much how I do it, at least with one example, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So creating that personal rapport, building that rapport on a call, and not just jumping straight into products, right? You're really brokering that trust. So that when it comes to unpacking their pain points and what they're trying to get done, there's already that level of like, yeah, I trust this person, right? They've invested in me. That's incredible. What skill set are you still trying to work on or perfect? What's something that you feel like you haven't quite mastered yet?
Oh wow! I think we need to have another podcast episode to talk about. There is a lot of things that I'm still trying to master, quite honest. But I'm gonna start by saying that sometimes, saying no, it's hard, especially when you are a person that, like me, that like to help, that like to also volunteer, that it's all about, helping others to be success. Sometimes you have struggled to just being able to say, hey, no, I cannot commit to this. I cannot commit to that. And I'm still learning that skill. I should say, sometimes I try, I'm going to say, sometimes I just overcommit with multiple stuff, even though I use it. I do, I do it all. But that costs me a lot, of course, of extra effort, extra stress, extra time, because I just committed a little bit too much, right?
Right.
I think that's probably one of those that I'm still working. And trust me, I'm not working alone. And that's the other thing that I always want to tell the audience, right? And all the people that are listening, hey, you don't need to work alone. There is mentors, there are coaches, there are, friends, family. Go and ask for help. Ask for help. People can give you advice sometimes. I mean, if you want a door to open, you need to knock. You need to knock the door. Otherwise, the door is going to keep closed, right? So if you need to master one of those skills, right, like in my case, learn how to say no, I need to start listening from other people. Okay, hey, how'd you do it? No, tell me a little bit. How'd you do it? And maybe some of those words can resonate in my life or in my style. And I can, oh, yeah, you know what? I don't do that. What if I try? And just start that self-improvement exercise with some of those skills, right?
Yeah, I hear you. I have a very difficult time saying no. Personally, professionally, I'm like, yep, let's take it on. I'll do it. And then I have no time and experience burnout. And it's like, that's not worth it. So I'm with you there. We can hold each other accountable on saying no more.
Yeah, let's train together. I mean, of course, we can do it.
Okay, we'll do it. We'll totally do it. Well, we're coming up on time, which is crazy. This is blown by, truly. But I wanna end. I always like some sort of call to action. And you mentioned mentorship and coaching. For those folks listening out there who are maybe a part of Cisco or not a part of Cisco, it can feel really intimidating trying to get a mentor or a sponsor or asking someone for guidance. Do you have recommendations, when approaching people, or how do you even go about finding one? Like, where do you start? What would your advice be?
Okay, I think that that's scary at the first time you do it, right? I mean, pretty much every single thing you do in life, it's scary the first time you do it, right? Once you start doing it more, you're gonna gain that confidence, right? My advice is, hey, if you really want to find someone to mentor you or to coach you, right? First of all, you need to be able to just sell yourself. What I'm saying by, what I mean by selling yourself, it's, again, every single mentorship or coaching relationship needs to be a two-way relationship. So the coach needs to also win something. And the mentor needs to also win something. So find that you can offer and go and sell yourself. Because in that way, you're probably gonna, let's say, got a yes, right? Because now I'm not only asking for you to commit your time to help me out. No, I'm asking you, okay, to create a relationship, a two-way relationship in which I can put something from my side as well and help you with your goals. So instead of just go and ask someone to mentor you or to coaching you, change that and maybe ask first, hey, how can I help you to be successful?
Mm-hmm.
How can I help you to be successful in your role? You know what? I got this experience. I know this and that. And, and I want to learn more about this. There is something that probably I can use in one of your initiatives. And in that way, you are, again, creating a two-way relationship. And that's way more powerful than just go and ask, without give back anything, right?
Sure. Yeah, that's a really great point. I think sometimes people feel intimidated, like, well, what could they learn from me? They're 2 levels up, but there's always something. There's always a skill set you have or a value that you bring, and practice it, right? Practice saying what it is with someone else first, maybe before you pitch it to that person. But I think that's such a good point. Don't underestimate the value that you bring to the relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, you are unique. At the end of the day, you are unique, and you need to trust yourself that you are unique, and there is something that you can add. There is always value that you can bring.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, do you know what is that value?
Right. Soul archaeology. You got to do your homework.
Yeah.
What is your value that you're bringing? Yeah. Well, I feel inspired, and I think you should come talk to my sales org if you're open to it.
Anytime, of course. More than happy to do it.
Okay, this is not the part where we work on saying no. I love that you just said yes to me.
Oh yeah, no, but that one is hard to say no, quite honest. I'm gonna tell you why, because that's the kind of thing that I really love to. So it's right.
I would love that. Actually, I would love for you to come talk to my sales org. So we'll talk about after we stop the recording. But Ricardo, thank you so much for joining the podcast. I hope you had the best time.
Oh yeah, it was a great conversation. Thank you so much, Sammy. Really enjoyed this, and again, thank you so much for inviting me. And it's great to share my story. And actually, this was a really nice experience, quite honest. And remember, you asked me the question about what kind of skills I'm still trying to master.
Yes.
Guess what? Being vulnerable and just sharing my story, it's one of those that I'm still trying to master, because it's not as easy as sounds. And sometimes, even people love to talk about himself or herself. It's not as easy as go deep and just share those details, right? And I really appreciate, you and the entire Meraki podcast team for inviting me and, give me this time to not only share my story, I hope inspire someone, but at the same time also help me on my mastering that skill. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Well, thank you for being incredibly vulnerable. You did a brilliant job of sharing your story, and it is never easy to do, but it makes a difference. And it's why people want to listen to you and talk to you and engage with you, because they feel that authenticity. So it is so, so important. So thank you again, Ricardo, for joining. And that wraps up another episode, folks, of the Meraki Unboxed podcast. My name is Sammy Brenner. Thank you for listening. Download, subscribe, tell your friends, and tune in 2 weeks for new content. Have a wonderful day, folks.